Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome to the Slave Ages podcast. This extra special episode, I have the great distinction of talking to writer, producer, and a performer, Terry Blade. Terry, how are you?
Doing great. Happy Sunday, and thank you for having me.
Happy Sunday. I first became of your music when you released your 2001 album, American Descendants of Slavery, which came out, as I mentioned, 2001. I'm not even sure how I got it, but I was so captivated by your writing, the production style you employ, your vocals, the story. And now, of course, you have well, not new albums. It came out a little while ago, a little while ago. But not too long ago, which was Ethos, Song of a Sharecropper.
Yes.
And of course, I got that via Bandcamp as well, and immediately fell in love with it. Could you tell us a little bit about the album, how did it come about?
Yeah. Um, so so I have been I've been sort of a multi-genre artist, and I'd say like over the past 4 years or so, it I experiment and with multiple genres of music, and I think that there's a lot of room for communicating my personal like ethos and my style, and expressing what I want to express. And most recently, I got into like sort of Americana, and this kind of stemmed from my wanting to kind of be a steward of Black music, or what is considered
Mhm.
Black music. And we've been having these conversations, I think, a lot about country music and some of these other genres that are not considered Black, even though um, there are major Black contributions and blues and all that other stuff. So I set my eyes on Americana, to kind of show and emphasize that like this is Black music too, not just what we think of as traditionally Black music, R&B and hip hop and soul and that sort of thing. This is like the foundation, I think, of traditional roots, American roots music. And I drew from my grandfather's experience. My grandparents are from the South, and my grandfather in particular is from North Carolina, in a place called Coleraine, North Carolina. And his dad was a sharecropper, and when he was very, very young, he was taken out of school when he was a teenager to work. And a lot of Americana and roots music and blues comes out of, I think, the South and that experience. And I wanted to capture my ethos that I got from my grandfather and my mother, and my grandmother, and kind of capture that experience, and to show how like this is a Black experience. This is a Black experience, not the Black experience, but this is my Black experience. Um, and as a queer person, as an openly gay and queer person, um, who comes from what we consider to be very um, traditional Southern roots. That's my history. But this is who I am. So that was the like inspiration for that. And again, it's this idea that Black music can only be this one thing.
Mhm.
And it's just wrong. It's folk, it's country, it's bluegrass, it's blues, it's soul, it's all of that. And historically, it has always been that.
Mhm. And the thing is, with your music, it's um unapologetically Americana.
Mhm.
Um, and the instrumentation, but your lyrics are very much in the folk tradition in terms of they're very direct and very vivid and very descriptive. Um, could you talk a little bit about when did you start thinking about this project, and then we'll talk about the songs a little bit more.
So I probably started thinking about it 2022, probably 2022. I probably spent all year, all year on it. And I have a vocal coach, and something just kind of happened organically. So my vocal coach doesn't my vocal coach kind of takes his lead from me in terms of what I'm working on,
Okay.
and tries to like help me like make it better. So anyway, he's great and he's wonderful. So I started out with like gospel, which is interesting because I think I have a contentious relationship with some of the traditions of gospel and the culture in the Black community, but then
Right.
it's also like a part of my history as a Black person, and how could I like make those things work? And so I guess for me, um, I write from a very personal place. It is very direct. It is about my experience.
Mhm.
It is therapeutic. It is the way that I wrestle with and cope with the world on a day-to-day basis, by writing about it and expressing my feelings and telling my stories, talking about what I observe. Um, but uh, I'm also very much like, what if I got out of my comfort zone and really like kind of wrestled with that, um, with genre. So it started off with like with gospel in 2022. I started off with like a gospel hit. It eventually became In My House, which is like the last track. So it's like blues gospel country.
Mhm.
Um, but then I've also been an acoustic person. So like a lot of my early work is just raw acoustic stuff, just me and an acoustic guitar. And I've always thought like what's more roots than that, right?
Right.
Like
Right. Right.
where less is more. Yeah, less is more. Like
Hmm.
just had your it was just your voice and a thing, and then you know and then there's that also says like some stuff about like talent. So I wanted in part to be very stripped back, very like but then I thought like about like, okay, this isn't a collection of songs and merely a genre exploration. It's a story, right?
Hmm.
It's a paying homage to my history and the ways in which history has affected my present, my life today. And so I think I spent better part of the year recording and writing and recording and writing and recording and writing. Um, and listening, and then I just some things I I started I didn't like, right, I didn't finish. Other things I ran with, and I was like, okay, right. And then I was also like, well, what else? I also had to like think like um what else do I want to say, right? Like what am I really what am I really saying, right? Like um and I don't think that really was clear to me until maybe the summer fall. I
Okay.
would say probably maybe the later part of the year, where I was just kind of like, okay, this is like really what I want to say with this, what I want to say with this album, and this is what I really want to kind of express. I had like a hodgepodge of different emotions and different stories, but making them cohesive, right, into a narrative that Terry, am the son of a sharecropper.
Hmm.
And these are my ethics, these are my values, these are my beliefs, right? This is my culture. Um, Probably took shape then, right? So yeah.
So Terry, um, in terms of your writing process, do you start with the music or is it lyrics? And you talked about, and this is a multiple choice question, I guess. You talked about you starting with basically acoustic guitar. Was that what you used to demo, or did you demo?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. So, okay, so I almost always start with music, but I am not like some amazing instrumentalist. So, we live in a world where people have all kinds of like people are making music all the time. And early on, there's producer um, Ryan Anderson, and
Mhm.
he had just a bunch of like just a like he has a treasure trove of just acoustic, just him and an acoustic guitar, um, um, beats and or instrumentals, and so yeah, like you start out with a loop. You start out with a loop, and you know, and I don't know how to describe it except to say it just depends on just depends on my mood and it just kind of happens, right?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I will say that's how the songwriting process starts for me. But if I'm being honest, really being like truthful, the process probably started with journaling, right? Like I didn't always set out to do a song. I journal, like I write all the time, and so um, I took some of that, like, and just turned it into a song. Like I you know my writing is very my journaling is very deep and personal, and you know all of that and psychological and all of those things. So therefore my music is
Mhm.
because it kind of forms the foundation of that. So a lot of it is me turning in again my experiences that I've journaled into songs um and kind of drawing inspiration from the music. And it's just you know it's not anything. It has to you know like it has to it has to feel right. It has to be the right mood. And I just kind of like go with it. I sing to it, and then if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then it doesn't.
So how many of the 10 songs on the album were a result of your journaling? All of them?
Probably probably 70%. I'd probably
Okay.
say 7 out of the 10 were 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 the result of like previous journal entries. Like, you know, I don't even know. Like it's journal entries and diaries are supposed to be private, right? They are. I don't literally mean like everything that happened to them is in the song, um, but yeah, probably 70% of them. 70% of them are are from journal entries, or at least were inspired from journal entries. And I would say probably about 3 songs where I was just like, I love how this sounds, and I'm inspired by the music, and let me just write lyrics to it.
Mhm.
Um, so, or like honestly, like it's just it's random. Like, so one of those songs was Jimmy James.
Mhm.
Like that's not a journal entry song. That was just a like I heard this producer's like you know, instrumentals, and I heard that, and I was just listening to it, and I think it starts like anything with a love for music, just loving how it sounds, and just being like, all right, and it just inspired me to write Jimmy James.
And Jimmy James, that's fascinating lyrics. I mean, the first verse, there was a soul named Jimmy I once knew, brown liquor for eyes when he made his debut. Uh,
Yes.
just
Okay, so not a journal entry, but definitely inspired by like real events. So Jimmy James is about like God, Jimmy James can be a homeless. I was thinking of somebody who was homeless, who had this really rich life. Um, but they're kind of like reduced to their status of being unhoused. But I knew a lot of people like that, right? Or
Mhm.
I just grew up with a lot of Jimmys. Just like they had like stories to tell, very entertaining, like real people, but just unhoused. Yeah. And drunk, right? And in pain and out of it, and probably struggling with mental illness and a bunch of other things like that. And so that's like what I went. That's kind of like the direction I went with it. But it wasn't a journal entry. It was kind of a like, I remember when I was a child, and I would see so and so in front of the liquor store or
Mhm.
whatever, or I would hear, oh, so and so used to be best friends with your uncle, and now they were homeless, and they
Yeah.
had brown eyes, like, and it looked like brown liquor, and they were drinking brown, and so that's just sort of what, yeah,
Yeah, fantastic lyric, a fantastic song. Why don't we talk about a few other ones? I picked
yeah.
out a few to talk about. So, won't be round, won't be around.
Mm, that's a journal entry. Won't Be Around is oh my god, it's about, oh, say so it's okay. Can I just say that song took off in a way that I don't think any of my other songs did. Bobby Cole was a composer on that, and that was a journal entry about um not doing what I say I'm gonna do. Okay, so I've been wrestling with the idea that I have said that I was gonna do something, or I was gonna leave a situation, um, and I ultimately didn't. And I felt accountable for that, and you know, I felt like I felt like I wasn't being true and honest to myself, and I also felt like, my words and my commitment to myself had very little value.
Uh-huh.
And I was wrestling with that. I was journaling about it, and on a surface level, it's about being in a bad relationship or a bad arrangement, and you know actually leaving it. So like, I told you I was gonna leave,
Right.
right? And now I meant that shit. Like, now I'm doing it, right? But for me, it's broader. It's broader than that, right? It is like, it's it's about like relationships of, I don't know, like like being a black person in corporate America, and that sort of relationship, and how that is, can be unhealthy and toxic, and so you leave that. Or um having a relationship with drugs or alcohol, and like leaving that. Or having some sort of, any sort of just unhealthy thing that you're just kind of like, it's always like this, with you or with us. I give and I give and I give and I give. I get nothing in return, or everything. I'm really only hurting myself. I'm gonna leave, and then actually doing it and like staying away, right?
Hmm.
So like, that is what Won't Be Around is about. It is literally about like abandoning the situation, like not just saying you're gonna do it, not just threatening you're gonna do it, but
But
it's like,
actually doing it.
I'm doing it,
Yep.
right? So who are you gonna run to? Who you gonna weak to? Who you gonna lie to, right? Like, whatever that is, right? Like, in that arrangement, whatever that is, who, because it won't be me, right? I won't be, right? You can't do it by yourself, right? Like,
Right.
codependent codependency. So I was a very personal one. Um, but it seems to have really resonated.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
I'm I've gotten some awards. A lot of awards from it because of it. It was runner up for recently with the International Acoustic Music Awards.
Mhm.
I did not expect that. I was like, oh my gosh, right? Like, so it's done, it's done well, and I'm happy about that.
Now, your website, terryblademusic.com, lists a bunch of the awards that you've been up for and the awards you've won, including the Global Music Award, the Indian Independent Film Fest, Josie Music Award, and recently the California Music Video Award. So,
Yes,
a bunch of tremendous accolades for your music and for the album. That's great.
thank you.
The next song on my list is Rigor Mortis.
Oh my gosh, let me tell you how that came about. I that was that was a journal entry, but it's really eerie because my aunt died,
Hmm.
but I wasn't aware that she had died. I wasn't aware that she had died. Um, but I was just in this very I was just in a very somber mood. This is probably in August, a very somber mood, and this was a journal entry, and I was just kind of thinking about thinking about like what is death like, and what does it feel like, what does it mean, um where do I go from here, what if I was just in that, in that headspace. I
Mhm.
don't remember kind of what caused it, but I on some deeper level I think maybe I was picking up on something that was happening with my aunt because she had she had passed away. um she passed away while I was writing it.
Wow.
She passed away when I was writing it and recording it, and it is, rigor mortis is about, it is literally about, it's about death. And it's like it's got this driving kind of dark western,
Mhm.
feel to it, but it is a march. Yeah, and it is a march towards death. It is a march towards the end or the beginning or the after. And I kind of hitched my my imagination to the idea of, you know being escorted there by a dark figure, right? Like you're in bed, and then there's this there's this dark figure that kind of takes you away, and it's like, can I take my time? Do I have to go right now? Like, um, so that's how that came about. But when I got a call from my mom, um, maybe a day or two after I recorded it, and telling me that, you
Mhm.
know, my aunt had passed away, and she's my only aunt. So, um, and then when we learned the date, I was like, I was writing, I was writing this when she, on the day of her, and I did not know, I didn't talk to her, I didn't get any sort of
Mhm.
anything. It just happened. So that was very, I don't know, coincidental or some sort of connection or
Cosmic
something. I don't
connection.
know.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's just that was very. So it is. I dedicate that song to her. But um, that's how Rigor Mortis, yeah, came to be. And the composer there, again, Adrian Berenger, just did great work. And you've never heard, you've never heard me do anything like that before. I don't, that's not usually my space. But like, again, it's just kind of like, no, this is black music. This is the music that I'm doing, and I can still, I can still talk about my experiences and my themes that way. So yeah, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. Next on my list is Rainbow Child.
Okay, so I probably spent a couple years writing Rainbow Child.
Really?
I it wasn't just a journal entry. It was a opus of things of journaling and therapy. Rainbow Child is is about growing up gay or queer or non gender conforming. And as someone who's black, and that was rough. That was rough for me. It was rough. It's one of the most painful experiences. I didn't think I would survive it. So it ended up kind of being a letter to me. It's like, what would I say to me if I was 12 years old, you know, um, at the time? And the whole it gets better thing
Hmm.
um didn't make sense to me at the time because I was like, how, right? Like you just can't see you just can't see a future without it. You don't know that things can change or that people can change or that things can evolve. You just don't see it because it's particularly when it's so normal and so normalized to be homophobic and heteronormative at the time. You just don't really see a world where it isn't that way. But if I could, but if I could have me talk to me then, I think I would have gotten through that time better. So it was kind of a way of reconciling with that. So
Hmm.
it's it's literally me talking to me, but universally it's me talking to every you know queer, bi, asexual, trans, pan, person who is not considered the norm.
Hmm.
Um, and your child, right? You're different. Um, it's me. That message is for them. So that it's the longest song on the album. I think it's probably over 5 minutes. It's like 5 minutes. I think it's like 5 minutes. It's
Yes,
pretty long.
just over 5 minutes, right?
Just over 5 minutes. So it's pretty long. And I worked with Nicholas Rowe on that. And it took me a couple years to write it and to get it right. Get it there. One, because it was like super emotional and very
Hmm.
difficult, and I couldn't do it, and it was very triggering and um all of that. So yeah, but as son of a sharecropper, uh it is it was very much my experience, and so yeah, it's a big part of my identity and my music.
Fantastic. Thank you. So next is Talk About It.
Okay, talk about it with me. Okay, so I there are there's another I'm laughing because there's another version of this song.
Really?
It started out one way and it ended up going another way. It was in part because you know my local coach pushed me on this a few ways. Talk about it is like, I think it's, first of all, it's just guitar and me, right?
Hmm.
That is fundamentally who I've been as an artist. If you go back to my first single, Unlovable, it's guitar, me guitar. So it's literally getting back to the roots of Terry. But it's a folk singer songwriter kind of gig. And talk about it um, is a journal entry about wanting to wanting to talk when someone isn't ready to talk to you, and wanting to talk about something when someone you love isn't ready to talk about it,
Hmm.
and kind of the difficulty of that. And it kind of took me time to realize that like I really didn't want to talk about it for them. I wanted to talk about it for me. And it's very like, it's a very selfish thing. It's just, you kind of like tell yourself that it's no, it's good for you to talk about it, right? But really, it's good for me. So I want to talk about it, right? Like literally, I want to talk about this thing or this issue or whatever. And so, um, but then I've learned over the course of journaling, like the idea of relationships is respecting boundaries and really, putting myself in the space of like, well, what if I don't want? There's times where I don't want to talk about something and I'm not ready to talk about it, right? And like, I might lash out, or I might like, you know what I mean? Like, I need room, right? I just need room, and so I think I got it once I like tried to put myself in the situation of like, wait, there's things you, Terry, you don't want to, you're not ready to talk about, even with
Sure.
people you love very, very dearly and who do love and care about you and all of that, and they just want to help. And so, so that follows Rainbow Child because I didn't want to talk about my
Hmm.
painful experience, and I had plenty of people in my life who did want to talk about it, and I didn't want to talk about it. And when you're a child and you go through that sort of trauma, and you grow up and become an adult, you didn't mess yourself up, right? Like, but you're like responsible for fixing it. So
Hmm.
literally talk about it um, is is a is about like it's really about my journey to go to therapy. I'll just be honest with you. It's again, it's like third person, right? Like
Right.
um, so it's eh, I I you know I drew inspiration from a number of things. Of one, when I've been wanting to help someone go through something tough and they don't want to talk about it, but then really it's just like I sought therapy as an adult because of what I went through as a child, and a lot of people were telling me to do that, and I was like, no, right? Like I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
I don't want to talk to some stranger about that. And until I'm ready, and I was very defensive, and I was very like, mm. And so that's what it's about. And then I eventually chose someone to talk about it with when I was ready to do that. Uh, and it's a kind of a larger commentary on mental health in the Black community and
Hmm.
how like our tradition, and our values doesn't, we're not, we don't seek out therapy. There are lots of different reasons for that. Some of it's access, but there's also like a stigma tied to
Yeah.
it, and
Hmm.
and like it's often replaced with Jesus and the church and other things, right? Like other things to kind of cope with that. And it's like, no, you need to talk to a therapist, right? Like, and
Right.
so um just my struggle with that. So that's what it is in terms of like the sharecropper of it all. But
Hmm.
that's the sort of inspiration for it.
Great. Thank you. Then finally on my list, wasn't mine.
Okay. All right. Um, so I'd say wasn't mine started out as like it started out it actually it didn't start out it didn't start out the way it was a fully produced thing with instrumentation behind it and
Mhm.
all of that. Um and then I thought, well, you know, does it have to have that? And can't there just, like, I was thinking about like the burden, yeah, the burden of blackness, okay,
Mhm.
um, and America, the weight of that, and just like some of the like some of the work songs and things like that that are very much tradition, right? You just like you can I, you can do a lot with just clapping and stomping, you
Hmm.
know,
Right.
right? Like
Like,
like musically, just clapping and stomping. And um so it's all me, it's all my vocals. And so I like try to I think it's like maybe three or four vocal stems of me.
hmm.
Wasn't mine is literally about I have my own problems. I have my own problems, but like they're like real problems, right? Like again, the burden I have the burden. I cannot take on your problems too,
Hmm.
right? I can't. My hands are full, right? I got so much stuff. I got too much stuff to hold, right? Like to hold it all. And it is uh that is a message to I mean it's a at a basic level it's a message to someone else who's like who has like their burdens and want to unload, like who doesn't want to do that, right? But it's also like socially and culturally just kind of like I cannot, right, like take on anything else. I have too much to handle. um and yet somehow I'm able to handle it all.
Hmm.
Yeah. And yet somehow we take that on and are able, yet somehow we get it all done. Right. But it wasn't my problem. It wasn't my burden. Even just like at a basic level, like racism or whatever that is, it's like, actually, that's your problem. It's not my problem. Right. It was never my problem.
Hmm.
But I had to deal with it. Right. I had to still care. Like, like, so that's what that is. Or like like poverty or some of these social injustices or personal injustices. It's like it was never my problem. Like you did something to me or you were dealing with something, right, and it affected me, but it was never mine to really carry, but yet I'm carrying it.
Hmm.
Yes, yet I'm carrying it and yet I persevere. Yeah. um, and in the song I say like you won't turn your problems into mine, right? Like so like it doesn't have to be the burden that we carry. Again, journaling, therapy, all that. But in the tradition of just, what if I try something with just like a stomp
Hmm.
and kind of a in the way of Negro spirituals or whatever, like just my voice, just like vocals, right, and harmonies and the tradition of a work song, right, in the South, um, while you're a sharecropper, or I don't know, like any sort of labor, right, like in that time period.
Hmm.
So that was the inspiration for it. Yeah, that's how it came to be.
Fantastic. So, Terry, we've talked about a few of the 10 songs on your album. Anything else you want to cover with regard to the songs we didn't talk about?
Sure. So I would say there's probably, gosh, did we? I would say In My House is probably the one that I am most proud of. It's the last one, In
Yes.
My House. It's the
Mhm.
closer. And it's a ballad. And my house is literally not my house. Okay, it's not my house. House is a metaphor for soul, right? And or body or whatever. And it was very um it was sort of my way of reconciling what I talked about earlier about gospel, the gospel tradition. It is done in a traditionally gospel way, in a traditionally gospel verse by verse kind of a thing. And it was my way of acknowledging that that is very much a part of who I am and my history,
Mhm.
without any of the religion or any of the other things that I have kind of felt excluded me from that or I didn't relate to. And I could talk about my soul and I could talk about those things in a way that was not condemning or, again, exclusionary,
Hmm.
but literally getting my, like, this is the state of my house. Yeah.
Right.
Uh, uh, it's, it's, it's very lonely at times. Um, it is, you know, it's empty. Don't ring my bell. Don't come. Right. Don't right. Like I've got
Right.
like it's got there's a lot going on in my house. I don't want people in my house, basically. I don't like and I literally also don't like people in my house. Like it's right, it's like it's just personal. Um but but it's probably the one that I have the I guess I don't know. Aside from Rainbow Child, that I was I don't know it was probably the most physically um purging or like cathartic song that I think I did on the album. Rainbow Child was pretty cathartic too, but
Mhm.
it was more of a it was difficult, but In My House was cathartic in an entirely different way. And in a genre and in a style that I wouldn't have dared touch ever like in the past and did and I think made it my own. So
Oh, fantastic. Great. So you have been on tour a little bit this year. How was that going?
actually on tour. Okay, like all right, I am not on tour. Okay, I just want to say I am technically not on tour. I know that the way the events say like make it seem like all right. So what I've done is I have essentially posted events of festivals and other things that I will that I that I'm expected to be included in,
Hmm.
or I'm, I might be up for some award or something like that. So I am definitely not touring. I have a day job. It is very intense. And I have shown up remotely sometimes. So it is like, I don't want people thinking I'm like gigging. I'm not doing that. Um, but it has been, it's been very anti pandemic, I would say. That's what it's been. So like I don't know, like you forget that they're like real people sometimes.
Hmm.
You feel that if that makes sense. You feel like there are like real people like in this world of music and in the underground that are that are fans and truly lovers of art and story and you know want to sort of elevate their experience or deepen their understanding of life and the world. And so it's been helpful about that. It's also been like super helpful to meet someone who I don't know and they're like connected, they've like enjoyed, something that I've written that was very personal, or they have someone, like, and they're not like, they might not even share some of the, some of the uh, qualities or some of the facets of my identity, but,
Hmm.
but relate or appreciate um, my work. And so it's affirming, it's it's revealing, it's eye-opening, and it's also really humbling
Hmm.
too. Really, really, really humbling. And kind of reminds you of like, the kind of the consequences of what you put out in the
Hmm.
world and what you say. It's like, oh, like someone could listen to this and and interpret it a certain way. And, like you don't think about that. We often are just trying to get someone to listen at all, right?
Mhm.
Just like hear me, just listen, please. But like, what does that mean? Like, really, like what are the consequences of someone actually listening and internalizing what you're saying and how you say it? And so it's been tremendously humbling. And it's also just been like great to get awards or to be up for awards or, you know, stuff. That's great. It's always great. So
Yeah, I absolutely love Ethos, Son of a Sharecropper. And I appreciate your perspective about the songs, and there's certain identifiable things in your lyrics. The arrangements are great. It's a wonderful album, and I've enjoyed your catalog, which is available on Bandcamp, and of course you could check out terryblademusic.com. It's a fantastic catalog,
thank
a
you.
fantastic group of projects, and this album in particular, in terms of telling a story. It's personal to you, yet it's identifiable to a lot of us. So thank you for that. Anything else you want to add?
No, just thank you for having me, and thank you for listening to my work. And you know, I'm flattered, and I'm grateful, and I'm glad that it's good. I'm glad it's good enough, right? I'm glad it's good enough that somebody likes it and is listening to it and is relating to it, and that ultimately I'm probably not alone, not alone in what I experience and what I go through. I think that is probably what I'm most grateful for.
Yeah,
So
given
thank
all
you
the
for reminding
well,
me of that.
well, absolutely. I mean, given all the awards you've received and accolades, it's well deserved. So thank you for that. Let me turn off the recording and then I'll keep you for one more second. Thanks.
Okay.